Well, the Washington Post reported that the Biden administration is warning that the U.S. could see an uptick in COVID cases this fall and winter, with projections showing 100 million COVID cases and a potential wave of deaths, citing the new Omicron subvariants. According to the Post, the projection is part of a bigger push to persuade lawmakers to pass nearly $23 billion in emergency aid for purchasing new vaccines, tests, and therapeutics. But the GOP is insisting on a $10 billion price tag. According to the New York Times, administration officials have met with 2 Republican senators as Democrats contemplate wrapping COVID into another emergency package for Ukraine. If Congress does not approve more money, the administration would use funds designated for testing and therapeutics to develop a bare-bones vaccination program to cover older Americans and the immunocompromised. However, this leaves out funding for boosters for the general public.
Interesting.
It is interesting.
Well, it's definitely coming back. I mean, I don't think anybody was, of course, people have been hoping that the pandemic would end, that COVID would go away, that we'd get zero COVID. That is not realistic. It's still with us. I'm in quarantine right now because I have a family member here who has COVID that I've been caretaking for. So, Ryan, as we know, has been out with COVID for the last couple of weeks. It's still here. It's not going anywhere. Of course, it's going to get worse in the fall. It always does. Mm-hmm. But then the question is, what are they going to do about it? And are we going to go back into lockdowns, masks? Are we in this circus for how long? Are we in this circus, and what are we going to do about it? Right?
Well, and are we going to spend billions and billions and billions of dollars? I mean, Americans are very concerned about inflation right now because it's a huge problem. And look, you can argue that the inflation we're facing is not. You can make arguments, and Ryan, for instance, makes arguments that it's not primarily a result of the government spending. But I think you'd have a hard time convincing me, and I think you'd have a hard time convincing the American people that billions and billions and billions more spending on this kind of stuff wouldn't run the risk of making the inflation problem even worse. And that's the thing people are most worried about right now. Most worried about, not COVID, because look, you can protect yourself if you're worried about that. You have the capability to do that. For the overwhelming majority of people, it is who've gotten vaccinated or are not at significant health risk. It is a mild disease, getting milder with each new variant so far. So people's economic concerns, I think, are way higher, justifiably, than their concerns about the virus at this point.
Yeah, they do need to do. I mean, the other thing that I think is really bothersome about this is that they don't seem to be working on anything new. We're not getting new vaccines approved here in the United States, for example, that maybe would be more effective or at least improving the current ones that we have. As we know, they're not stopping the spread. They're not sterilizing. They wear off within 5 months. There's questions. We don't know what happens after the 3rd dose wears off. If you get a 4th dose, what happens after that wears off? We don't have any data on that. But they're not actually. And then the therapeutics, there's a therapeutic issue with the Paxlovid. There's what people are talking about, COVID rebounding. If you've been reading about that in the news, after people who've taken Paxlovid, they seem to not have the virus once they take the therapeutic. And then suddenly they've got the virus again. And that is a big point of discussion. And they're kind of researching that to figure out why that is. But, it seems like if we're going to be spending all of this money, the first place to put it would be testing, right? So that people know when to stay home and not spread it to other people. Maybe onto N95 masks so that when people are sick, they can, or they can protect themselves. But we've been really slow at that during this entire pandemic, not really getting that out there. I still don't even know if we really fully have that. I mean, I've been paying for tests because, like I said, I'm here in quarantine because of COVID. And I don't have it, but my partner does, and I've been buying tests every day, trying to, testing him, testing me, just to see. And we're just not seeming to make progress on that front. They're still they don't cost as much as they did, but they still cost money. So I do think there's still a big subset of Americans that are very worried. I worry personally about older Americans still. The vaccination wears off. So what do I do with my 95-year-old grandmother who was vaccinated and boosted 5 months ago, now knowing that, that she's still likely to get COVID and likely to have a bad outcome? As we know now, age is the biggest risk factor. So I don't know. It's a tough situation. I do think the government still needs to do something, especially for older Americans. But at the same time, like you're mentioning, inflation, and then on top of it, we're adding it into Ukraine.
Right.
So,
Well,
where
older
does this
Americans, I mean,
end?
people in their 90s, I mean, they should get, right, I think we do need to update our vaccines for them. And, they should get a booster shot once a year at least, right? I mean, at
Well, it
that
wears
age,
off
what's
every 5 months.
right, so
In
just keep
5 months'
giving it
time.
to them, whatever
Well, but we don't know. We don't know what it does. So they still don't really
well, right,
know
but
what it does. There's worries that it might weaken the immune system once it wears off, and that it makes you more susceptible to catching the virus. That's something the Israelis brought up when their government was authorizing the fourth dose of the booster for their population. Some of the scientists were saying, there's some early evidence that when the vaccine wears off, you may be even more likely to catch COVID than you were previously. That data does seem to be supported now by some data coming out by Walgreens. They're very transparent with really great data coming out from Walgreens. There's maybe some early evidence of it. Again, nothing verified, but it's still concerning, right? Because we don't know. We didn't go through all the testing to find out if you inject grandma 5, 6, 7, 10 times, 14 times, like what happens.
right.
We don't really know.
But I'm
right?
saying
So
we
it's-
do know,
it's all
but
tricky.
right. No, it's true. But it's just with people of that age group, we do know what happens
Right.
if they
Right.
don't have the vaccine at all, right? Then they have a very large chance of a bad outcome or death, because for that age cohort, the disease is just so deadly.
Well, we need better. We
Yeah.
need to be looking at the therapeutics even more so than, in that case, if we're
yeah.
not going to stop this. Right?
No, we're not. And that's what we're not. And we're not going to test and mask our way out of preventing old people from getting. It's just, it's not. It's too contagious. It's too, when the disease rolls through, when it's seasonal. There's flare ups, there are waves.
Right.
That stuff, it can lessen your chances of getting it. But so many people now. How many people have we heard say, "Oh, I've done everything right. How is this possible?"
Yeah.
It's because it's not avoidable. You can
Right.
increase your chances of avoiding it, but it's not no guarantee. It's only a little, the little benefit you're getting. People are going to continue to get it at every age level, and we need to
Right.
make sure the oldest people have the right therapeutics, and let's really figure out what is the right boosting regimen, because they're going to you cannot pretend, we can't lock down our way out of it. We can't mask our way out of it. We can't test our way out of it. It's just going to happen for the foreseeable future.
And my partner is fully vaccinated,
Yep.
fully vaccinated and down and out with COVID right now with fever, and all that. So, I mean, it is difficult.
How's
Right,
he
there's
feeling?
no
How's
real
he doing?
stopping. He's had a fever, so it's about 100 degrees for the last few days, chills, sweats, right?
that's
Just
rough.
like feeling down and out, but not like bedridden totally, still walking around breathing all over me. With his COVID
And is this,
breath.
if you don't mind me, is this his first bout with COVID, or what he thinks is his first bout?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So hopefully I don't, I had it, but I had it over 2 years ago now. So I'm kind of like,
You could
how
get it again.
long? Yeah. What's my natural? But I also took care of my dad who had COVID back in January, and he was in bed for days, and I was right in his face caretaking for him, and I didn't catch it. He had the Delta variant, but this one, so I'm just kind of wondering, like, how long does my natural immunity last? Like, I don't know. I had it back in February, March of 2020. I caught it really, really early on because I was traveling a ton, especially throughout the West Coast, Washington, and, areas where there was a lot of COVID spread really early on. And I didn't really get sick, luckily, when I had it. I had it for... I had like one night where I was like having a tough time breathing. I just got really fatigued, extremely fatigued, but otherwise not sick. It did give me like a flare up, like they say that sometimes when you catch COVID, it might flare up your immune system, and something that you have already might come out. Like I have eczema, and so it like flared it out really bad. So that was like the worst of it for me. But yeah, he's down and out. But every day I'm like, I feel sick. I don't know. Maybe I got it. And then I test and I'm like, no, and I don't have a fever. So it's just like, I'm just having sympathy illness, right? Like,
Yeah. Well, we got to get you both healthy before the wedding, right?
well, I'm glad it's getting over with now, you know, because we're
Right.
getting
Now's
married
the right
next
time.
month.
You've got plenty of
Right,
time. Yeah.
right. So I'm actually trying to get near him, like, give that to me. Give me
Right.
some COVID.
Even if
I'm
you
gonna
get it right now, you'll be better. And yeah.
That's
that
what
makes
yeah.
sense.
So I'm like literally like going right up next to him, sitting next to him. He's like, why are you sitting next to me? I'm like, I'm trying to catch some COVID. I want this over with now. If I'm going to get it, let's get it over with today, now. I've heard that the immunity lasts 2 years. I'm at the point.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I do think we want to play this funny clip real quick for you. This was just Trump announcing the Johnson & Johnson guy at this. Was this the owner and the heir of Johnson & Johnson? And this, I think, is just like a funny clip of Republicans, the shift in mentality that we've seen with the base, but clearly not with Trump. So check this out with him.
What a job he did. Also with us are some friends of mine. They wanted to say, I said, don't come tonight. Let's go another time. It's pouring. Woody Johnson, a great gentleman. You ever hear of Johnson & Johnson? He owns the place. I tell you what, this guy's got cash like nobody's got cash.
Yeah.
Boo, they don't care.
And you know, it shows a little bit of Trump out of touch somewhat with the base.
Yeah.
He's kind of out of touch with the base on some aspects of COVID stuff.
Yeah.
And, you know, it makes you wonder how that would, you know, as the odds of Republicans, whoever the Republican is, just winning no matter what, kind of go up and up. It makes me wonder what would a head-on Trump versus DeSantis battle look like? I don't know.
You're right. I think you're right. I think he rode a populist wave to the White House that he doesn't fully understand. And this is one of those showcasings of him not understanding it, right? He goes, and this, by the way, that Johnson & Johnson guy's worth $5.7 billion. That's why the crowd is not cheering. They're like, but imagine if he brought up the Pfizer guy, it would have been, people would have like, they would have lost their minds, I think.
Very interesting, very interesting.
Yeah.
All right, well, tomorrow on Rising, Lieutenant Colonel Daniel Davis will join us to discuss the latest on the war in Ukraine.
Be sure to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss any content. And for those of you who like to listen while on the go, we're now available anywhere you listen to podcasts.
Yay.
All right, guys. We will see you later. Thank you so much for joining us.
See you tomorrow.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.